Our previous session was very much focused on the sorts of developments that are occurring at the farm level. But I think when you look closely at some of the developments that occurred in places like the US, a lot of the driver for it is in the farm input sector. So a lot of the developments and platforms are actually being delivered from the farm input sector and have a dual function in terms of solving problems for farm input suppliers as well as organising and helping with decision making at the farm level. So we had some discussion before about the need for extension and training, and certainly the message you get out of the US is that a lot of the work to set up and have some of those systems working at the farm level is in fact done by the input suppliers, the agronomists, etc., who then are involved in the systems from then on. So they are obviously a very important part of the adoption of digital technologies at the farm level. So we've got a number of speakers this afternoon from the input side, the input supply side, or the service supply side, who obviously will have a quite important role in relation to developments in digital agriculture into the future. And our first speaker is Tim Condon, who's one of the senior farm consultants and I think one of the founders of Delta Agribusiness, which is based in southwest New South Wales and is a very strong input and advisory organisation for that region of Australia. So please welcome Tim Condon.
Thanks, Mick, and thanks to the AFI for the opportunity to participate in such a well put together conference around such a hot topic. Well, are traditional technologies disrupting the traditional way of doing business? Well, they sure are. So what I want to do is just spend the next 20 minutes talking about where are we at this point in time. There's a lot of these technologies now, they're moving from the scientist and the bleeding edge grower phase, and they're moving through to the point where they're being more readily adopted across a wider section of the community. And I'm coming to you as an agronomist in a mixed farming, broadacre sense in southern New South Wales. So that put that in perspective, what part of the industry I'm talking about. So the next 20 minutes, I want to talk about how we've gone about extracting value and benefits out of these digital technologies for our sector of the industry. So I'll take you through where we sit in the supply chain and what's going on around us to drive and create the opportunities for these technologies to be adopted. And then I'll take you through some real on-farm live examples of how this digital disruption is benefiting our business and the business of the growers that we've got relationships with. So who are we? Delta Ag, we're a privately owned supplier of farm inputs, advisory services and marketing services. Now we've got 25 locations across the cropping belt of New South Wales, so you can see from the Queensland border down to the Victorian border basically. Where do we sit in the supply chain? Well, we see ourselves sitting at a couple of spots in the supply chain. The traditional bit, dealing with the ag chem manufacturers, fertiliser suppliers, merchandise suppliers. We also deal with seed companies, breeding companies, and also deal with R&D providers. So in this space, big data is having a big influence on what they're doing and what they're bringing to the market, and we're a conduit for them to get their products to the grower. So new molecules are coming out faster. New genetics is getting to the market faster. And they're two big gains for productivity into the future. But the other one is the new understandings that are coming out of the R&D providers for us in the industry to adopt. We're getting a much deeper and a much better understanding of what drives our systems. They're important changes that are only happening because of big data and digital disruption, if you like, in that part of the world. And then what do? We've got our advisory services, and we put all this together and we supply our farmers with all the inputs and advice they need to run their farming systems. And the next part of the supply chain, if you like, those farming businesses then give us back commodities, lamb, beef, whatever, and grain, and we have a grain marketing section that communicates with the accumulators and processors to get them to market. So that's where we sit in the supply chain. The lift and shift part about it, a big part of what we do is we're trying to add value to what's going on. We've heard before about right product, right place, right time, right price, but this reliable bit is the bit that's becoming more important. There's changes going on here all the time, mergers, acquisitions, rationalisations, we all hear about those. Two big changes here are just-in-time manufacturing and set volumes. So manufacturers now, we say once upon a time, if you want a product X to fix problem Y and it popped up, you just jump on the phone and find that product somewhere and it'll turn up, problem solved. Well now, the manufacturer, you say, oh, when do you think you might need that? And we say, oh, probably in May. So 1st of May, here's your order. So the point down the bottom there of forecasting, to be a reliable supplier, forecasting is really critical to how well you can perform. Like this year, for example, chickpeas, it's a big crop, high price. A lot of growers want to grow chickpeas, but all the inputs they grow around growing chickpeas are therefore going to be very tight and there's going to be supply issues around that. So we have to manage that more often than not on the grower's behalf without them really understanding what that means. So we need deeper relationships with our clients to be able to understand those market signals, to be able to react quickly. And we obviously use a lot of business analytics as well within our business to make sure we're running a good business, which involves a lot of data crunching. So farm businesses, up and down, we've heard a fair bit about this. Farm business sizes have basically doubled in the last 15, 20 years. Same time the number of businesses has gone down by about 40%. And a part of that process has been the intensification of cropping. You know, one labour unit, John Kierkegaard put together a talk from CSIRO and come up with this stat about one labour unit managing 50% more land than what they did in 1990. So he's also got some good information that just highlights that. With the next graph's coming up on warning. It's pretty busy. It's got a fair bit going on, so just be ready for it. So here it is. So we've got time across the bottom. You can see here grain production going up, sheep numbers going down. And there's a few numbers around it. So sheep numbers 160 million to 72 million. Production 15 to 45, tripling over that time frame. So that's a big change to who we've got to deal with and what we've got to deal with when we're out in the paddock. So Mick Keogh also tells us that production's been flatlining since 1997, and just to highlight that a bit more, there's Australia in the yellow. The other countries have gone above the line or off the chart even, but we've flatlined through that period. So addressing that in terms of our productivity with our growers is something that they're really keen to do as well. Within farm businesses, we talk about volatility. Well, it's omnipresent, whether it's weather risk, climate risk, price risk. Doesn't matter what it is. It's volatile, and you've got to deal with that, and that creates risk in the business. And if I just pick out price, just pick out a crop. Oh, where am I going here? Canola, year-to-year variation. That's a given. That's the way the commodity markets work. But it's that within season, those yellow bars, that within season variation, 30% at times. From the top price of the season to the lowest price of the season. Helping growers capture the top price is a very valuable way we can help them. So people, all the farmers in here would know they're focused on all this sort of stuff: profitability, productivity, return on investment, risk management, labour in terms of trade, and they've got to do all this in a sustainable way, whether they're a corporate farm or a family farm, doesn't matter. All these things really drive what they're doing and how they're going about it. It's not all about yield. It's about, we see those maps and you want to get the red area look like the blue area. Or maybe you just don't spend anything at all on the red area and you make more money out of it. So using tools to do those sort of things is really important. And this concept of resource use efficiency is really driving what farming businesses are doing. It's nitrogen, it might be capital, it might be labour, it might be water, whatever it is, whatever resource is being used, to use it efficiently. And some ABARE stats that came out recently, there's two sets of line here, the yellow and the blue, and the light blue and the dark blue and the red blue. And it's really what we're trying to do with a lot of these technologies and this, in this space for the next step in agriculture is to drive that line wider. Use same inputs or less inputs to achieve a greater outcome. So that resource use efficiency it becomes a bit of a theme through some of these talks. So in the digital paddock, what's going on? Well, many technologies are on offer, and in fact it's really overwhelming. I mean, it's for a lot of people, for us, for our growers, what do I do? What do I adopt? What do I change? And it really becomes quite difficult. And if I can put that in some context with this next point about farming systems aren't necessarily changing. A farmer's got their system, the business is running a system, controlled traffic, stubble retained, a continuous cropping, might be a mixed farming operation where they've got set stocking, rotational grazing, whatever. The system's sort of staying the same. Changes slowly, but the digital tools that are now available or are potentially available can change the way you do things and drive that resource use efficiency up. So back in 1876, the thing called a stump jump plough came out, and everyone thought, oh, you beauty, here's the problem solved. And went out in the paddock and stood next to the machine and watched it work and kicked the clods. Then went back to the plough and harrow and had a beer to wash the dust out of their throats and talk about, should I adopt this technology or not? And that's where a lot of growers are at and a lot of advisors are at. We're looking at crop health maps and variable rate line maps and yield maps and soil moisture information, and we're going, what do I do? So we're sort of, the growers now go back to the tablet and cloud and have a think about it. Then all the boffins in the cities and at the universities go to the algorithm club and talk about what they're going to do with it. So, for Delrag, what are we going to do with it? How do we react? What do we do in this thing? We've been quite overwhelmed as well and challenged, and we're the incumbent here. We're trying to lead our industry and our growers to a point where everyone's productive and profitable. We look at the taxi industry, the music industry, the banking industry. The incumbent's the one that's the most vulnerable. So it's created a lot of significant internal disruption, if you like, because not everyone's going to come out of this really well. So we want to make sure that we are out there, like Tim talked about champions. We really want to be one of those champions in our part of the world in this situation. And it's no simple task to change. So we've had to have a clear strategy to be a part of, almost to lead this disruption. And in fact, we travelled the globe looking at all different parts, similar environments, to see what are they doing, how are they, who's ahead of us, who's behind us, and we're right up there. But we wanted systems. We recognised that we needed systems. It's come out in a lot of previous talks that capture data, have the ability to interpret, understand, analyse that data, and then give you the ability to act and add value. And they also have to be affordable. So we basically come up with 2 projects, Precision Ag project and a Weather and Soil Moisture project. So Precision Ag has been around, now it's just shifting to Decision Ag. Tim gave a great talk about what that is all about, probably better than me this morning. Connectivity, reduced cost, increased speed, increased resolution, increased capability, ease of use is increasing. All these things have changed around this point in time to all of a sudden go from, oh yeah, it's been there for a long time, I know about it, to being a tool that you can actually adopt and use. And if you can just blank your mind and think about Precision Ag, what's it got to do? It's got to do 4 things. It's got to have software that's really easy to use, really powerful, can collect the data, can give you the opportunity to analyse it and do all that stuff we've talked about. You've got to have the hardware. We've talked about how important that is with growers already. You've got to have hardware that works every time, all the time, and is reliable. It needs to be agnostic. Every machine and every controller has got to be able to talk to every other machine, every other controller, and that's a really important point. And also around this interpretation and advice, that's sort of come up today as a bit of a common theme, as maybe a bit of a barrier to it. But having the trusted advisor in there to help the grower, or someone who can interpret and advise on what to do with the information is really important as well. So we've teamed up with a crowd called Farmers Edge, a Canadian-based crew who operate in a very similar environment to us, and it's got this schematic, those 4 things are covered. It's got a really good software platform. It's agnostic. It can talk to anything and everything. And then this point here is really important. It's got the hardware is really well serviced. So we've got a thing called a 20-minute rule. You get in a machine, you want to do a job. If you can't make that do what you want it to do within 20 minutes, you're not going to do it. So we've got people on the end of a phone 24/7. So when any farmer gets in any machine and they want it to work and it's not working, they can jump on a phone and get a call from that point of view. But also the setup is done pre the activity happening to make sure that it doesn't fail on you. And then of course, we've got some advisors there as well to help pull the whole thing together. So I'll shift over now. That's the Precision Ag platform. Talk about this Dawn. It's a water and weather network. What is it? Well, it's a connected network of weather stations and soil moisture probes. If that corridor where we operate, I talked about 14 million hectares of cropping country there. Before we put this network in, 25% of hectares in there were within 25 kilometres of an automatic weather station. So what does that mean? That means some of them are 90, 80, 70 kilometres away. So when you're trying to run a model, it's using rainfall that's falling and the ambient temperature and the solar radiation that's happening way over there. So we've now got this network in place, and the schematic there with the coverage on those points in those towns sort of highlighted. So there's 60 odd weather stations there now that are collecting all this data automatically, and we can say that pretty much every hectare in that belt is now within 25 kilometres of an automatic weather station. That's state of the art and measures everything to the level that the CSIRO blokes want it to measure and APSIM want to measure and how it all works. And then, that's going to be available. The data out there is going to be available on a commercial subscription basis. And we make no bones about that. some of the outputs. That's just a rainfall map for May. But it's this localised data around, the things that drive models, the ambient temperature, soil temperature, solar radiation. And our growers are saying that the delta T thing is a really handy thing to have. They can, when they're on the job, they've got a really good record of delta T, and they can actually see in real time what the delta T is for their spraying applications, etc. And also we've got the soil moisture probe network. These are, we consider them to be the best dryland agriculture probe. It's not a horticulture probe, tells you it's wet or dry, it's a dryland probe that gives you a really good sense of what's available and where it's available in the profile. Uses unique algorithms and to really produce some powerful data around soil moisture. So what are the productivity benefits? Well, again, it's all about driving that resource use efficiency, targeted management, objective and timely decision making. We can tailor what people want for their individual needs. Some of them want all the bang bells and whistles, like we've talked about, who's VR variable rate ready? Well, it's the same in our patch. Only 10% of farmers have got variable rate capability, but that's going to change as people change machinery in the next few years. So having the ability to adopt that and use that technology is important. So lifting productivity, building some system resilience around this so we can give people the confidence to do what they do year in, year out, whether it's a good year, bad year, mediocre year. We can benchmark what they do, and this really thing here, which has got me and my colleagues on my toes, is we can interrogate the value of our advice now. So I'd tell a farmer, we'd come up with an idea, we're going to go and use that herbicide package over there, and we just went over here, we can actually, he said, no, I don't want to do that, I want to do mine over here. We can actually measure who's performing the best and what's giving you the best return. So, and the other aspect, which is really important, is fleet machinery management. There's real benefits there. Volatility benefits, risk, cast your mind back to that canola graph I put up, managing risk, whether it be, if you can really get a much more high visibility around your risk profile, it can influence your banking, your seasonal finance, commodity marketing, livestock marketing. And if I can just say move on to this risk management, comes back to that canola paddock. If you can combine this data together and you create a whole lot of visibility about what's going on with that crop right from the start to the end, with crop health maps throughout the season, and you manage what you're doing to manage the crop, and then you bring a grower and a grain accumulator together, and you've got this really high level of visibility around those hectares, you can come up with a hectare contract that works for everybody. Because you think about it, traditionally hectare contracts were just out there to try and attract someone to grow a crop that no one really wanted to grow. So they give a hectare contract with a price, and then it turns into a cracking year and the crop yields really well, and the price drops, and all they move the tonnes around to make that hectare contract even more attractive for the grower. It's harder for the accumulator to police where it all happens and how it happens. But if we get everyone in agreement and create a really high level of visibility around it, this is a really exciting opportunity for managing risk. So in that canola graph, you can capture more of those tops. Not every time, but you've got the confidence to capture the spikes more often. And that'll be happening this year. So we've got that to the point where we can actually make that happen with a grain accumulator this year, which is very exciting. So the benefits for our business: strengthens business relationships, new services that add value around inputs and commodity marketing, objectivity, forecasting. It does give us career opportunities for young folk to come through who want to work in this space. We can accommodate them. So digital disruption is changing the way we do things in a very positive way. There's lots of opportunities out there. Like this bloke here getting traction on the ground, they're putting his crop in. We're getting traction with Farmers Edge and Dawn. But across that photo there, there's a bit of blue sky as well. So there's more opportunities coming, and we've got more things coming, and that's the exciting part about it. We think that we're on the cusp of really making a difference here. Thank you.